Welcome to today's deep dive. We're looking at a stack of research today that, frankly, challenges our most basic, fundamental understanding of what a home actually is.
It really does. And just to be totally clear, with you listening right off the bat, we aren't doing like a real estate seminar today.
Yeah, exactly. We aren't reviewing smart home tech, and this definitely isn't disaster prep advice.
No, not at all. Instead, we're exploring one really massive central question. Is a home today really just a place where we live?
Right, or, could the home be understood as the single point where multiple systems of civilization, electricity, communication, work, public administration are all basically forced to recombine into your everyday life?
It is such a profound shift in perspective. I mean, historically, when we measure the value of housing, the metrics are incredibly straightforward. You look at square footage, location, school
Yeah,
districts.
age of the roof, things like that.
Exactly. And those things obviously still matter. But the overarching theme in our material today is that those old metrics are missing this massive, invisible new requirement. We are now asking our living spaces to handle a constant, relentless connection to a highly complex society.
Think about what happens when the electricity blips out for just a second in your house. I mean, not a massive days-long blackout, just a tiny flicker.
Right, a decade ago, you just had to, reset the microwave clock?
Exactly. But today, your internet drops, your video call with your boss freezes, your smart thermostat disconnects.
Everything halts.
Yeah. Your ability to work, communicate, and essentially participate in the modern world just stops entirely.
The disruption is instantaneous. It really reveals how fragile that connection actually is.
And consider the physical environment, too. Like a massive heat wave or a bitter cold snap doesn't just make you physically uncomfortable anymore.
No, it has cascading effects.
Right. If your air conditioning struggles, it actively degrades your sleep. And when your sleep is degraded, your concentration just vanishes, your judgment plummets.
And suddenly you literally cannot navigate the complex demands of your online work the next day.
Exactly. I mean, we're seeing public services, shopping, administration all moving online. Society tells you, hey, great news, you have access to this powerful new AI tool.
But just having access on paper doesn't mean you can actually use it.
Right. Not if you lack the bandwidth, a charge device, the time, or honestly just a quiet physical environment to sit down and think.
Which forces us to look at a structural collision happening right under our roofs.
Oh.
We tend to talk about society speeding up as if it's this uniform process.
It isn't.
Not at all. The friction you're describing comes from a massive collision of two very different speeds operating in our world today.
I want to break down those speeds for a second, because this is where the material really clicked for me. So we have the fast systems.
Yes.
That's your AI models, your information networks, digital services, global financial markets. These systems operate at just blistering speeds.
They can change in months, weeks, or literally overnight with a software update.
Right. And then we have the slow systems, the physical housing stock, local neighborhood power grids.
The insulation inside our walls.
Yeah, underground pipes. I mean, urban infrastructure takes decades to change. And crucially, and I feel like this is the element that almost always gets left out, the slow system includes the human body.
Our biology.
We still need 8 hours of sleep. We still need to regulate our body temperature.
Precisely. The human brain does not upgrade its processing speed just because a new large language model was released.
Right. I can't just download more RAM for my brain.
Exactly. Our circadian rhythms, our physical recovery cycles, they're tethered to biology, which is a very slow system.
Yeah.
So the core issue isn't just that technology is fast and humans are slow. The structural shift is that these fast and slow systems are increasingly forced to meet and forced to coexist inside the exact same household.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy. It's like trying to run a lightning-fast next-generation operating system on a 15-year-old laptop.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
Right, like the software wants to move instantly. It is demanding immediate responses. But the hardware, which in this case is our physical houses, the local grid, and our actual biological brains, can only process so much heat and data at once before the fans start screaming and the whole thing freezes up.
That analogy hits the nail on the head because it highlights the bottleneck. I mean, the fast digital world demands immediate processing, but the physical environment dictates whether that processing can actually happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because these fast and slow systems are colliding right at our front doors, we have to completely rethink the concept of access. We tend to confuse what is technically possible with what is actually usable in reality.
Let's use remote work as the prime example here, because I think everyone listening can relate to this. From an institutional standpoint, your employer might say, hey, remote work is fully available to you.
Or a government rolls out a digital portal and says, you now have access to this service.
Right. It exists on paper. The capability has been provided.
But for that capability to actually reach your everyday life, a whole stack of conditions must be met simultaneously in your physical environment.
You need a functioning computer. You need reliable broadband.
Stable electricity. You need a dedicated workspace where you won't be constantly interrupted.
A tolerable physical temperature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And beyond the physical, you need the actual time to sit down and do the task and the cognitive capacity to focus on it. If even one of those conditions fails, the capability doesn't reach you.
So the access just becomes an illusion.
It does. We are shifting from an era of quantitative access, meaning do we simply have the technology built, to an era of conditional access.
Like, do you have the environment to actually run it?
Yes, exactly.
You know, when reading through the analysis, the macro parallel that just blew my mind was the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, right, the shipping lanes.
Yeah. We think of the ocean as just open water. Physically, the shipping lane is there. But a shipping lane physically existing does not mean a ship can just casually sail through it.
Right, there's a whole system around it.
To actually use that route today, you need military security, the right flag registry on your vessel, massive insurance policies, diplomatic clearance, port connections.
So the barrier isn't whether the water is wet.
Exactly. The barrier is all the surrounding connection conditions.
And that parallel scales perfectly down to the modern living room. I mean, we see the exact same logic playing out right now with the rollout of massive AI data centers.
Oh, yeah, the energy demands are insane.
Historically, if a big tech company needed power for a server farm, they built it and just plugged into the grid. The local utility supplied the power, no questions asked.
Because the grid had a massive surplus and the demands were relatively small back then.
Right. But today, the demands of AI infrastructure are so massive and the scale-up is so rapid that these data centers aren't just allowed to plug in unconditionally anymore.
They have to prove they won't break the system.
Exactly. They're heavily audited. Governments and utilities have to evaluate their water usage for cooling. They calculate the total power impact, the heat exhaust, the strain on the local community's resources.
Wow.
These centers are evaluated on their connection conditions long before they are ever granted access to the grid.
Wait, so just because an institution provides a capability, that doesn't mean it actually reaches everyday life? We are applying that same intense conditional gatekeeping to everyday human beings now.
We really are.
It's like society is handing us the key to a car, but expecting us to magically pour our own concrete for the roads, drill for our own gas, and act as our own traffic cops just to make a trip to the grocery store.
Which brings us to a really uncomfortable question. If everyday people are taking on the burden of this conditional access, building the metaphorical roads in their own homes, then the cost of running society hasn't actually gone down.
It's just been shifted.
Yes. This is the concept of the conservation of friction.
Okay, I love this term. Explain conservation of friction.
Well, in physics, the law of conservation of energy states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, right?
Yeah.
It can only be transformed. We can apply that exact same logic to societal friction. Now, we should be careful not to frame digitalization as inherently evil or purely negative here.
Sure.
Moving administrative tasks online or using automation to speed up workflows has very obvious benefits.
Yeah, I'm actually going to push back here a little bit because I think a lot of you listening might feel like digitalization has reduced friction. I mean, I renewed my passport online last month.
Okay, how did that go?
It took me maybe 15 minutes from my couch. 10 years ago, that would have meant taking a half day off work, driving to a government building, standing in an awful line, dealing with paper forms. That absolute elimination of friction feels very real to me. My total time spent went way down.
That is a perfect example of what developers call the happy path in software design.
The happy path.
Yeah. When you have the right device, a stable connection, and your data perfectly matches what the automated system expects, the friction drops to near zero. You experience massive efficiency.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But what happens when you deviate from the happy path? What happens when the automated passport system flags your uploaded photo for a shadow it misinterprets? Or your address format doesn't match the legacy database?
Oh, then you are in absolute hell.
Exactly. In the past, if a paper form had a slight error, A human clerk at a desk could look at it, apply some context, fix it in 5 seconds, and stamp it.
Right. The institution paid that clerk a salary to handle that friction.
Today, if the automated system hits an exception, it just rejects you. There is no human clerk. So who handles the friction of figuring out the error, converting the file format, retaking the photo, and navigating a broken chatbot for 3 hours on a Saturday?
I do. The household absorbs it.
That is the conservation of friction. When a corporation or a government agency cuts operational costs by fully automating a service, the baseline friction of running a complex society doesn't just vanish into thin air.
It just moves.
It reappears on the other side of the boundary line as household adjustment. The home is quietly absorbing entirely new forms of invisible labor.
Think about your own life for a second. Where did one kind of cost decrease for society, but another cost, in your personal time, your attention, your equipment, quietly reappear in your living room? Because it's not just the passport, is it?
No, it's everything.
It's the constant account management. Password updates across 50 different essential services. Updating the firmware on your devices so they don't get bricked.
Navigating completely different online procedures for healthcare, taxes, your children's schooling, and your work.
Yeah, it's endless.
And beyond the administrative tasks, there is the literal physical labor of desperately maintaining connectivity, like troubleshooting why the router is dropping packets while you're supposed to be presenting in a virtual meeting.
I had a moment last month where I was literally on my hands and knees pulling a power cord out of a frozen router with one hand, while my other hand was holding my phone on speaker, listening to hold music from an automated healthcare bot that couldn't understand my prescription number.
That is the modern experience in a nutshell.
It was incredibly absurd. But when you look at it through this lens, that wasn't just a bad Tuesday. That was me performing unpaid labor to bridge a gap in civilization's infrastructure.
That suggests another way to look at the economic reality of the home. If a corporation saves $10 million by closing a regional support center and moving to an automated portal, but 1 million households each spend an extra hour a month fighting with that portal to get basic services.
The total friction hasn't decreased.
Exactly. It has just been pushed off the institutional ledger and dumped into the private living room.
But wait, if all this invisible labor is being dumped onto everyday households, why isn't this a massive front-page societal crisis? Like, if we are all feeling this exhaustion, why is there such a silence around the root cause?
Because of our institutional blind spots. Modern society is structured to manage problems in very strict silos.
What do you mean?
Well, we have a housing department to handle housing policy. We have an energy commission to handle the power grid. Telecommunications is handled by a separate agency entirely.
Oh, I see.
Welfare, labor laws, digital transformation policies, they are all distinct domains with their own budgets, their own metrics, and their own experts.
And they rarely talk to each other.
Almost never. But in everyday life, all of these separate, siloed institutional domains arrive at the exact same physical location.
Your front door.
Yes. Complexity that is divided by institutions must often be recombined by the person living through it as one single reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that is such a crucial point. The government sees 5 different digital initiatives working perfectly in their own separate dashboards.
Right, they see success.
But you just see your evening completely consumed by trying to make all these overlapping requirements function at the same time. You're trying to figure out why your neighborhood's aging power grid is causing your internet to throttle, which drops your remote work video call, while you're also trying to log into a mandatory school portal to pay a fee.
You are integrating energy policy, telecom policy, educational requirements, and modern labor expectations all at once.
Yeah.
In the corporate world, a systems integrator is a highly paid professional with a dedicated engineering team. We are expecting the average person to act as a master systems integrator for the entire modern world right from their kitchen table.
With 0 training and 0 budget.
Exactly. And because the problem is so distributed across these silos, the profound question of what does a household actually need to stay connected to society doesn't have a specific desk in government. It just falls through the cracks.
The housing department looks at your apartment and says, you have a roof and running water, you're fine.
The digital infrastructure department says the fiber optic cable reaches your street, you're fine.
But the actual integration of those things into a workable life, that is entirely on you.
The boundary may not be clearly defined yet, but we are watching a massive transfer of responsibility.
Which means we have to fundamentally reframe how we value and view our living spaces. We can't just think of a home as, the place where my bed and my TV are.
No, the function has changed.
We always hear about food, clothing, and shelter as the minimum living standards. But this implies that shelter is no longer a high enough bar.
It isn't. The analysis suggests we need to completely redefine those minimum standards. Having four walls to keep the rain off is the baseline of survival, sure, but it is no longer the baseline for participating in civilization.
Right.
A home must be an active mechanism.
A reconnection device.
Yes. When the outside world is moving at that blistering digital speed we talked about earlier, the home is the physical space where you must be able to slow down that speed.
It acts as a buffer.
It has to be a place where you can reorganize your daily life after a disruption, a place to recover your decision-making capacity, which, as we established, gets rapidly depleted by all that exception handling and invisible labor.
So the new minimum standard includes the ability to stably rest your mind, maintain a reliable connection to information networks, and have a safe space to suspend judgment, meaning you need a place where you don't have to constantly make high-stakes, complex decisions every single second.
And crucially, you need the physical and digital capacity to restart your work, or learning at a small scale if a system fails. It is the staging ground where you prepare to reconnect with wider society.
That is a wildly different standard than just checking if a building is weatherproof.
It is. But we do need to preserve some ambiguity here. We shouldn't romanticize this and claim that every home magically functions as a perfect reconnection device.
Right.
That changes depending on which layer of society we're looking at.
Yeah, because if you don't have the income to upgrade that 15-year-old laptop, or pay for the high-speed broadband, or run the AC during a heat wave, your home isn't a buffer at all.
Depending on a family's financial conditions and their access to reliable infrastructure, a home can act as a great adapter. Or it can become a space that absorbs excessive burdens from the outside world and ultimately traps them.
Wow, yeah.
If your house can't keep out the extreme heat, and your internet is unreliable, and you're constantly fielding digital demands you can't physically process, your home isn't connecting you to civilization, it is actively isolating you from it.
You just drop off the grid, not because you want to, but because you literally cannot maintain the conditions required to stay on it.
This raises an important question moving forward, which is simply observing what the household is being asked to absorb. As systems get faster and more frictionless for institutions, we have to watch how much invisible infrastructure is demanded of the individual just to meet the baseline conditions of participating in an advanced society.
So let's pull all of this together. We started by looking at a flickering light bulb, and we've uncovered a massive structural shift in how humanity interacts with its own creations.
We really have.
The relentless pace of digital systems is crashing into the slow biological reality of our bodies and our physical housing. We've seen that having access to the modern world is an illusion if you don't have the physical conditions to actually use it.
And we've seen how the friction eliminated from corporate ledgers doesn't disappear. It gets downloaded directly into your living room.
Yeah, you listening right now, you are quietly acting as the systems integrator for civilization's fragmented policies, piecing it all together while the Wi-Fi stutters.
It's a lot of pressure.
It completely changes how you look at your own living space. It's not just a box you sleep in. It is the final adapter plugging you into the modern world. Which leads us to a final thought for you to chew on today.
What's that?
When we evaluate a home, perhaps we can look not only at what it contains, the square footage, the appliances, but also at what it can bring back or restart after a disruption.
Exactly. How well it helps you recover and reconnect.
Because as we move forward into a world where everything is relentlessly, unavoidably connected, we have to ask ourselves, if our homes are the final fragile adapters for civilization's massive digital grid, what happens when the institutions decide to completely change the design of the plug, and we are the ones left holding the bill for the upgrade?
That is the question.
Thanks for taking the deep dive with us today.